And it was always so strange to me because I would go to school the next day or the next week and I would ask my friends, what did St. Nicholas bring you? And they would look at me like I was crazy because they had no idea what I was talking about. Hey guys, what's up? It's Kelly again and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'm going to share with you guys some things that I grew up with in the US that were German. Some of these things I knew were German at the time, but some of them I didn't realize were German until much later. And the first thing I'll talk about are the Grimm Brothers fairy tales. Now, I think they published around 300 fairy tales in total, but I only grew up with a handful. Of course, you're probably familiar with those that were turned into Disney movies like Cinderella and Rapunzel, but outside of those, I vividly remember reading Little Red Riding Hood, Hansel and Gretel, and Rumpelstiltskin because they were terrifying, or grim. I also grew up playing the game Punch Buggy with my friends, in which every time one of us saw a Volkswagen Beetle, we would lightly punch the others while yelling, "Punch Buggy, no punch back." Now, I don't know if everybody played the game under the same rules as my friends, but you were only allowed to Punch Buggy if you saw a Type 1 Beetle, meaning the older version of the car. There's a lot of uncertainty about exactly where the game got its start. Many people believe it actually started in the US, but of course VW is a German car manufacturer, and years later they ended up incorporating it into their own advertising campaign, most notably during a 2010 Super Bowl commercial. But call me a purist, they didn't play the game right because they punched anytime they saw any type of VW car, not just the Beatles. So they wouldn't have been allowed to play with my friends. And also, in that Super Bowl commercial, you see two bearded men sitting in a horse-drawn wagon wearing what appears to be Amish-style clothing, which brings me to the third German thing that I grew up with, the Pennsylvania Dutch. Now, I've done several videos about the Pennsylvania Dutch in the past, and if you're interested in them, I highly recommend going and watching those videos. But in short, the Pennsylvania Dutch immigrated from Germany to the US, specifically my home state of Pennsylvania, back in the 1600s in order to escape religious persecution. The language that they speak is unique, but it is essentially a German dialect. And I grew up surrounded by Pennsylvania Dutch, specifically, or I guess I should say most noticeably, the Amish. I would see their horses and buggies on the roadways, I would pass by their farms and schoolhouses, and even go shopping with my mom at their different stores. Another German thing I grew up with is the song 99 Red Balloons by the German band Nina. Now, of course, I had heard the original German version of this song, 99 Luftballons, many times, and I far prefer it over the English version of the song, but there is an American punk band named Goldfinger that actually did a cover of the song, and I listened to it all the time. In fact, my friends and I love this song so much that for one of my friends' birthdays, we blew up 99 red balloons and stuffed them all into her bedroom closet to surprise her. And speaking of music, I was also fairly familiar with the German band Rammstein, or Rammstein as we say in the US, specifically their song Du hast, which I feel like was very popular here in the US for a period of time. And then when I went to college, my roommate there was a huge fan of this band, and so I became more familiar with their music through her. A few more German things that I grew up with were the brands Puma and Adidas, or as we say in the US, Adidas. We all pronounce this brand wrong. And I coincidentally wore these brands predominantly for soccer, which is a very popular sport in Germany, of course under the name football instead. I owned Adidas sandals, socks, shorts. I think my high school uniform was Adidas brand, and I owned Puma soccer cleats and also socks. And if any of you are wondering, I played right defender or right fullback when I played soccer. Now, when it comes to food, there was quite a bit of German food that I grew up eating, but pumpernickel bread seems to always amaze my German friends for some reason. I think it's because there's just this massive assumption that Americans all eat crappy sliced white bread like Wonder Bread. But yes, I grew up eating pumpernickel bread. My dad loves this style of bread, so we would always have it in the house, and we would oftentimes eat it with our breakfast. I also grew up eating various Knorr products, specifically their gravies, sauces, and bouillons. And at the time when I was little, I did not realize that Knorr is a German company. And I actually recently read that it is listed on Forbes Global 2000, which is a list of the world's 2,000 largest public companies. I thought that was an interesting thing to share with you guys. Now, this isn't uniquely German, and I think the origin of this dish isn't even German, but it is worth bringing up because it's very commonly eaten in specific regions of Germany. I grew up eating a lot of sauerkraut. In fact, my family loves sauerkraut so much that my mom now makes and ferments her own sauerkraut. We would eat sauerkraut all year round with various dishes, but specifically on New Year's Day, we would always eat a meal of sauerkraut with pork. And I believe this is a tradition in Germany as well, not just with my family. And the idea is that sauerkraut is supposed to bring you good luck. So I have a feeling that not enough people in the world ate their dang sauerkraut and pork this past New Year's, because 2020 is a doozy and we could have used a heck of a lot more luck. So come this New Year's, y'all better be eating your sauerkraut and your pork, because you know I will be. We need anything we can get. Bring out all the superstitions, okay? And when it comes to candy, this really isn't that exciting, but I grew up eating a lot of Haribo gummy bears and Rittersport chocolate bars. My favorite Rittersport chocolate bar is the graham cracker one, or maybe the mint one. I really like that one as well, but yeah. Oh my god, I'm hungry. As I'm sure many American millennials can relate, I have some very fond memories of watching Bob Ross, a painter, on PBS after school. Now, while Bob Ross wasn't German at all, his predecessor was. You see, Bob Ross's show, The Joy of Painting, was essentially an extension of the show The Magic of Oil Painting, which was hosted by a man named Bill Alexander, who was born in East Prussia and even drafted into the Wehrmacht in World War II. I did a whole video talking about Bill Alexander and Bob Ross because I was so interested to learn that the origin of this show I loved so much as a kid and watched so often was essentially German. And while on the topic of entertainment, I also grew up watching the movie Run Lola Run, which is a great German film and allegedly served as the inspiration for a song that was very popular when I was young called It's My Life by Bon Jovi, and also served as the inspiration for a music video to a song that I absolutely loved and still love to this day called Ocean Avenue by the band Yellow Card. Another thing I grew up with that I had no idea was German was my beloved 3-ring binder. In school, I always had an entire collection of 3-ring binders to organize my notes, my assignments, various papers for my classes, and I had no idea that this was invented by a German, along with the hole punch that I needed to use for my 3-ring binder. Now, full disclosure, my parents did live in Germany for a bit of time before I was born, but I don't believe anything I talked about so far in this video was really influenced by my parents, except for the pumpernickel bread and the sauerkraut. But these next few things definitely are. So I grew up with a few of the souvenirs that my parents kept from their time that they lived in Germany, and one of those souvenirs is a walking cane or walking stick, which was wooden and covered in these very intricate and colorful medallions that featured different buildings or city, village names. And this walking cane and all of its accompanying medallions were from these Volksmarches or people's marches that my parents would participate in. And they loved doing these Volksmarches. They still talk very fondly about participating in them today. And once they did so many of these marches or walked so many kilometers, they would receive a new medallion to put onto their walking canes. Now, I've talked about my mom's different Christmas traditions in another video, but it's worth bringing up here because many of them came from Germany. For example, we celebrated St. Nicholas Day on December 6th, where my sister and I would lay out our shoes outside of our bedroom doors the night before, and St. Nicholas would come around and fill them up with candy and little small gifts. And it was always so strange to me because I would go to school the next day or the next week and I would ask my friends, what did St. Nicholas bring you? And they would look at me like I was crazy because they had no idea what I was talking about. They didn't celebrate St. Nicholas Day in their family because it's very rare for anyone to celebrate St. Nicholas Day here in the US. And then of course, like everyone else, I grew up learning about Santa's reindeer, Donner and Blitzen, which in German means thunder and lightning. And finally, the last German thing I grew up with in the US that I'll talk about in this video is kindergarten. I can't do this video and not talk about kindergarten. So in the US, you attend kindergarten after preschool and before primary school or first grade. And I know that's a little different from how you do it in Germany, but not only is the word kindergarten German, but the entire origin of our kindergarten is in fact German. And I just find it so interesting that this is a nationally very integrated part of our public education system, and it came from Germany. All right, guys, I'm sure there are so many other German things that I was exposed to while growing up in the US, and clearly there's been historically a lot of influence from Germany and different Germans in the US. For example, our entire highway system is modeled after the German highway system, and so on. Before this video, I was trying to think of very specific examples that related to me directly and personally. So I hope you found it interesting, and I would love to hear in the comments what maybe you were surprised to hear me talk about in this video. Or if you're not German, what sort of German things did you grow up around? If you enjoyed this video, guys, please let me know by giving it a big thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you're not following me on Instagram, look me up at Kelly Does Her Thing. I'm always posting different photos and stories on there for you guys to check out. Thank you so much to my patrons for all the support you've given me, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!